Welcome everyone to my first video. This is Kevin Sucks at Poker. In case it wasn't fairly clear from the name, I am in fact Kevin. And just tell you a little bit about me before we get into poker hands. I do not play poker for a living. I mostly play 2-5 and 1-3 in Las Vegas, which is where I live. I play most weekends. I've been playing a long time. I just don't play for a living. I had this idea the other day. It's kind of came to me like an epiphany. And I'm sitting there playing poker at Bellagio, and I'm talking about hands, and I'm talking about hands with my friends and my wife after. And it's like, man, people are interested in poker. They want to know how you did. They want to talk about interesting hands, or at least they'll tolerate you talking to them about your interesting hands. And it just came to me. I should do some recordings of my poker hands and talk about the interesting ones, what's going on, how much I win or lose, why I do what I do. I figure I'm going to call it a poker vlog because it's going to be a video log of me playing poker. I'm just super proud of the idea, and excited to bring it to you guys. Just being the first at anything is really exciting. It's a little scary. I'm not sure if anyone's gonna really care about watching me play poker or talking about it, but I figured we could share it and see how it goes. What's that? Who's Brad Evans? I'm just super proud of the idea, and excited to bring it to you guys. The world's second poker vlog. It's the silver medal of poker vlogs. At least there's not a bunch of people doing it. It's just like me and a guy named Brad, I guess. At least there's not a bunch of people. At least it's not saturated. You're not gonna look on YouTube for a poker vlog and find a bunch of people, just completely random people doing poker vlogs. It'll just be maybe me and this other Brad guy, if you can find him on there. It'll be good. It'll be, how many is a lot? I'm just super proud of the idea, and excited to bring it to you guys. A poker vlog. I pull up to the Bellagio around 9 p.m. on Friday, March 25th. We have a lot of nice rooms here in Las Vegas, but the Bellagio is my favorite. Not only is the room really well run, but I met my wife here playing 2-5, and I've just always enjoyed this room. I get seated in my 2-5 game at around 9-10 p.m. The Bellagio 2-5 is a $200 to $500 buy-in game, and I buy in for the max 500. The first hand I get involved in is about 10 minutes in the low jack I have ace-10 offsuit, and you guys are going to want to buckle up. I raise to 20, the high jack calls 20, and everybody else folds. The flop is 9 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, 3 of spades. This is better for his calling range than my raising range. He could have some suited connectors, pocket fives, pocket sixes, hands like those. So he could have picked up some sort of diamond draw or possibly a straight draw, though most straight draws are going to be something like 8-10 or gut shots with 10 jack or 4-5. So I'm not too worried about those hands. Since it's heads up, I continuation bet for 20, and he ends up making the call. The turn is the 7 of hearts, pairing the board. For the same reasons, I bet 45, and he calls. The river is the queen of clubs, so all the draws miss. I think about checking, but I don't want to be so weak that a missed draw now feels like it can bet at me, and then I'm either stuck hero calling with ace high or folding to a bet. So I decided to bet 80, which is about half the pot, feeling like if he missed a draw, this particular player is probably going to fold. I don't think he's going to raise me here. And if he has some sort of pairs like 4s or 5s, maybe he lets it go. But he ends up going shallow into the tank. and makes the call for 80 and shows ace-9 offsuit for a flop top pair that held up, and he wins. This hand ended up not being super crazy, but it is always a good idea to wear your seatbelt. After this hand, I add on for 100, so now I'm in for 600 total. In this next hand, I look down at Jack-Queen offsuit in the +1 position, and the under the gun player raises to 20. I make the call for 20, the button calls, and the big blind calls. Everybody else folds. The flop is the queen of clubs, king of clubs, ace of diamonds, so I flop bottom pair with a gut shot straight draw and a backdoor royal draw with the jack of clubs. The under the gun player bets 25. I call, the button folds, and the big blind calls. The turn is the jack of spades, giving me bottom 2 pair. The big blind checks, the under the gun player now checks, and I'm figuring that if either one of them had the straight, they probably would be betting it here because the board has a club draw. So I decide to make a bet at it for 60, thinking that there's a decent chance that everybody will fold and I'll just win the pot right here. Also could get called by some sort of club draw. The big blind does call and the under the gun player folds. The river's the 5 of diamonds, so the club draw misses, and he checks, and I check behind thinking that my hand's probably good, but there's not a lot of value, I don't think, in betting it here. He says he has a pair of 5s and doesn't show. He has to have been on a club draw with the 5 of clubs, and I show 2 pair jack queen, and I win. The under the gun player angrily says that my bet on the turn made him fold a better 2 pair and that he would have won. So betting the turn when everybody checked to me on a 4 straight board likely is the difference between winning this hand and losing this hand. In this next one, I'm in the low jack with pocket 4s. I did not start recording this hand because I also suck at vlogging. You just have to take my word for it. I have pocket 4s. I just limp on hands like pocket 4s, especially on a game that's pretty actiony like this one. I like to limp and then I can call a raise with them. And if I spike a set, I'm hoping to get paid. So that's what I'm doing in this hand. I call, the hijack raises to 20. The button calls, the big blind calls, and I call. The flop is queen of hearts, 4 of clubs, 5 of clubs, so flop bottom set. Feeling pretty good about that. It's checked to me, and even though the hijack raised pre-flop, I don't want to risk this getting checked through with a board of 4 of clubs, 5 of clubs. There's just too many straight draws, too many flush draws. I want to start betting right now, and if the hijack reads me as weak, since a lot of people that bet into a pre-flop raiser generally have 1 pair type hands or draws. If he wants to raise me, that would be great. And if not, at least I'm making people pay for potential draws or their top pair queen type hands. I bet 35, which is about 40% of the pot. I feel like this is a decent sized bet. There are 3 other people in, and I do want callers. The hijack folds, but the button calls and the big blind calls. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, which seems like a decent card. The club draw, which is the obvious draw, doesn't come in. I'm now losing to 2-3, 3-7, and 6-7, so it's possible that this makes someone a straight, but I bet 80. It gets to the button, who tanks for a little while, sheepishly shrugs his shoulders, counts out his stack. He only has 163 at this point and says, well, I guess I might as well go all in. So I, of course, pretty much instantly figure that he has 7-8 and he turned a gut shot straight for the nuts. But for $83 more, it's a pretty easy call for me with the set. He could just have turned 2-pair. I don't think that's the most likely holding, but I have lots of full house draws I can hit. So I do call. The big blind folds, and the river's the king of clubs. I show my set of 4s, and he shows 7-8 for the turned gut shot straight. This particular call with a gut shot straight, I think is pretty bad. Not just because it's hard to hit a gut shot, but this guy only has about $220 when this hand starts. He calls a raise to 20 pre-flop with 7-8 offsuit, flops a gut shot, and calls 35 more with the gut shot, hoping to hit a miracle 6, which isn't a club, which he does on the turn. So it ends up working out for him this time, but in general, if you're gonna be calling for 3 outers or possibly 4 outers, you want to make sure that you're really deep so that if you hit such a miracle card, you can get adequately paid off for hitting it, as opposed to here he hits it and then wins another $163 from me. But that's not really what you're looking for when you're calling to 3 outs, or maybe 4. For this one, I'm in the small blind with ace jack of diamonds. The +1 player raises to 15. The hijack calls, I call, and the big blind calls. The flop is the ace of spades, deuce of clubs, 8 of hearts. I check. I feel like I most likely have the best hand here, but I do like to mix in some checks, especially here I'm first to act and the +1 player raised pre-flop. So I'm happy to check here. It does end up getting checked around. The turn is the 6 of spades. I lead for 30. I don't want it to get checked through again. The big blind folds. The +1 player folds. And the hijack player raises to 90. Now, a little bit about the hijack player. He has been playing pretty crazy. He's bought into this game for the max about 4 times and bluffed about 3 buy-ins with just air and missed draws in the first half hour he's been in this game. So I don't take his raise here to be anything strong. And on a board of ace, deuce, 8, 6, he could have some random 2-pair. He has been playing all kinds of hands, so his range really could be anything, but I don't read him as strong here. I just read him as putting on another bluff. So when he raises to 90, I just call. The river is the 4 of diamonds. So the spade draw doesn't get there. There's no straight on the board other than 3-5 and 5-7. But I check to him. I figure there's a very real chance that he will bluff at this pot again, and he bets 160. I think about it for a minute. I just want to make sure. I feel pretty confident I have the best hand. I'm definitely not raising. There's nothing he can call with a raise that I'm beating unless he's calling with something crazy like ace 9 or ace 7 or something. I'm not raising for that thin a value here against this player who really could have anything, but I feel like ace jack's probably the best hand, and I just want to think about it for a minute. I do come to the conclusion that I definitely feel like I have the best hand, so I do call, and he says good call, which generally means that I should be ahead. And because I'm vlogging, I do make him show his hand first because I want to know what he's playing. He shows king of hearts and 4 of hearts. So he was bluffing on the turn with no pair and no draw. I guess he had a pair draw to a pair of kings or a pair of 4s. And he rivered a 4, giving him 4th pair. And he wanted to take another bluff at it for 160. So I end up winning this one, catching a bluff. For this next one, I'm in the hijack with 2 black aces. A lot of rec players don't realize, but 2 black aces are actually 25% more likely to win than 2 red aces and 35% more likely to win than off-colored aces. There's an under the gun straddle for 10. It gets folded to me in the hijack. I raise to 50. The big blind calls. He's the guy who hit the gut shot on me earlier. and the straddler calls. He's the guy who tried to bluff me on the hand with ace jack. The flop comes out 4 of clubs, 5 of clubs, 8 of spades, which I pretty much hate against these two players. They both check to me, and even though I'm not a big fan of this flop against these two players, I do bet 75, and they both fold. This next hand, I'm again in the hijack, and the under the gun is straddles once again to 10. I have ace-king offsuit. It folds to me. I raise to 40. It gets back to the under the gun straddler, who jams for 150 or so total. So I call. The flop is the 4 of diamonds, 10 of clubs, deuce of spades. The turn's the king of clubs. The river's the jack of diamonds. He shows 4-5 of spades, and I win this one. In this next one, I'm in the cutoff. There's a double straddle on. The low jack calls 20, the hijack calls 20. I have the ace of diamonds and the ace of clubs, and even though they're off color, I decide to raise them to 90 here. I think that's about the right size for a straddle to 20 and 2 callers before me. It folds around to the low jack, who calls 90. The flop is the ace of spades, the jack of diamonds, and the deuce of clubs. So I flop the top set. That's pretty nice. The low jack leads at it for 125. And I think for a while about whether I want to just smooth call or raise here. And I feel like I played this one pretty bad, actually. In the last few days before the session, and including the session, I had a lot of gut shots and things get there against me, and so I decided to raise here, even though I think it's pretty clearly should just be a call. My raise, I can really only get called by something like ace king or ace queen would probably call me. Ace jack for sure calls me. There's obviously not a lot of aces left in the deck. Pocket jack's willing to get all their money in, but pretty much any other hands probably going to fold, although that's probably the case even if I smooth call, unless someone really wants to blast off on the turn with kings or queens after I make a pretty decent sized raise pre-flop and then call or bet with an ace on the board. I don't think most queens and kings is going to blast off on the turn. Maybe they bluff at it again, or maybe they check and call one bet from me, but I don't really think this player is going to do that. And so I do raise to 325, which again, I feel is a bad bet. I should have just called. He does snap fold. He said he had queens, and that as soon as I don't fold to his bet on the flop, he's done with the hand. He's not going to make any other bets at it. And he also says that I have to have an ace, so he doesn't even put me on quite as strong of a hand as I have. But I feel I played this one bad, but I don't think I was going to get any more money from this player. He wasn't the player who was bluffing off all his money. This guy had been playing fairly solid. So I feel like he was going to take his one stab at it and probably be done with it. But regardless, didn't play this one as well as I could have, but happy to take the win. For the last hand of my first poker vlog, I have ace-5 of diamonds in the +1. I just call 5, kind of for the same reasons I did with the pocket 4s earlier. I don't mind calling a raise with this hand up to 20, 25 and trying to spike a flop. I don't want to get 3-bet with this hand and have to call 60 or 75. I will raise with this hand sometimes, but in this particular situation, I decide to limp. It actually folds around to the small blind, who is the same gentleman who bluffed off all the money earlier. I bluff called with the ace jack and shoved on me when I had ace king. So he just calls for 5, and the big blind also just calls. So it's me against lines with my ace-5 of diamonds. The flop is the 5 of spades, the deuce of diamonds, and the 8 of diamonds. That's about as good of a flop as you could hope for without flopping a straight or the nut flush. It gets checked to me. I bet 15. The small blind raises to 50. The big blind folds, and I call. I think about raising here, but This is the guy who, as I've mentioned, has been bluffing the whole night, and I don't really want to raise here and be put in a position where he jams and I'm calling off $1,000 or $1,200 on my pair and huge draw, especially against this player. I think he's very likely to bluff at me if I get there, and if not and he has a real hand, he probably won't be able to fold. He has over 1,000 in his stack. I have about 1,300 in my stack, so I just call here. The turn is the 6 of spades. He leads for 100. For the same reasons, I don't want to raise here. I just call. The river is the ace of hearts, giving me 2 pair. Not quite as strong, of course, as hitting diamonds, which would have been the nuts. But he leads at me for 200. Now, I think for a while as to whether I want to raise this hand for value. It seems like it'd be pretty thin value. The board missed diamonds. The turn gave 2 spades for a spade draw, but those missed also. The way he plays this hand feels a lot to me like a random 2 pair out of the small blind. He, of course, could have any of the sets, even 5s, although that's the least likely. Obviously, he's not going to have a set of aces, but he could have flopped any of the sets, deuces, 8s, or 5s, although he probably raised pre-flop with those. So I think it's more likely that he has 2 pair or possibly turned a straight. But since he check raised the flop, I think it's most likely he flopped a 2 pair. He's in the small blind, so even though this player always could be playing any 2 cards, he really could have any 2 cards here out of the small blind. I really think he's probably got 2 pair, possibly a bluff, but most likely I think he actually has a hand and it's probably 2 pair by the way this hand's been played. So after thinking for a while, I decide to raise to 500 for some thin value. And if he jams on me, I'm planning on just throwing up in my mouth a little bit. Luckily, I raised to 500 and he tanks, which of course lets me think that 1, he doesn't have a straight or a set, and 2, he probably really does have a hand like 2 pair that he's thinking about calling my race. So he tanks for a while. He does end up calling. I show ace 5, 2 pair, and he mucks and says that he had me until the river, and I was pretty sure he had 2 pair, and even though he didn't show, he does say that he had 2 pair on the flop. So whether that's a deuce 8 or a 5-8, your guess is as good as mine. He didn't show, but 2 pair is what I put him on the entire way. Everyone limped pre-flop, just me against the blinds for $5, and I end up winning a very large pot. Alright, what's up everybody? It's 2:20 in the morning and I've finished playing. I was in for 600, out for 1740, so that's a win of 1140, and I'm happy with that. That's a good night. I hit some hands. People were playing crazy at my table. I got paid off on some hands. Yeah, good night all around. Alright everybody, thanks for watching my first poker vlog. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'm told that people commenting and pushing the like and subscribe buttons really help a channel. I think it's only $1 per like and $5 per subscribe on YouTube. So that, it's a pretty good deal, really, for, free videos, free content. Free. Apparently it's free. It's free to comment, like, and even subscribe. So if you enjoyed watching the video, please do those things. If you thought I was terrible at poker, then you should especially like, comment, and subscribe, because then maybe more people would watch the video, see how badly I play poker, and copy that pattern, and then you will win more money from those people in the future, meaning that liking, commenting, and subscribing probably actually makes you more money. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see you next time.